Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a alarming pattern that continues to take shape across the United States and will be with us for a good while, probably well into August. This will be affecting many people, not in just one given location, and that's pretty much talking about the heat, as I have been for the past several days. This is going to be an interesting one. Notice that we do have several areas, actually a large area of the United States, many millions of people under heat advisories. We do have some excessive heat or excessive heat warnings. So this will be kind of in multiple flare-ups. Right? It won't be just like, oh, 3 days and then this pattern's done. It will kind of flare up in the next 2 days like it's doing right now, and then wind down a bit and then flare up again. And that's kind of just the whole general thing I'm talking about. And I'll be also just talking about a potential storm that could be occurring into tomorrow across the Midwest, and just maybe talking about the monsoons as well, as that is also a pretty important talking point. So let's start talking about this. First off, let me just zoom in on the excessive heat warning area, which is really the Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul area. A large population center for the northern United States, and do note that there is a chance for some thunderstorms today. Those could be easily strong, especially in such conditions. This may not look too bad, 94 degrees, but do know that the humidity is pretty high, and that's the heat indexes are going to be the ones that really kind of make this as bad as it is. Notice 106. That is very high, and that's why they have those excessive heat warnings. Do note that across South Dakota, we are starting to see some nasty storms starting to flare up. These will be the ones that could drag into Minnesota and potentially then reflare tomorrow as a pretty nasty cold front across a good portion of the Midwest, bringing storms to Michigan and Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Ohio, southern Wisconsin, and whatnot. And also, I do want to know another smaller area of excessive heat warnings, but affecting many people as well, is in the Northeast. Notice that, that is just incredible. 99 for Boston. They probably may, get that up towards a excessive heat warning if conditions are start looking like they need to, issue a one. I think it's anytime it's above 100, especially the heat values. I think heat values on above 105 and the actual temperature above 100. That's when they issue that, at least for the Northeast. Do note we do have some shower storms. Again, nothing too significant. Again, definitely could, with any thunderstorm, a brief downpour, cause some flooding, even some damage from some winds. Mother Nature does throw curveballs. Notice how these storms have been evolving pretty rapidly, and they will continue to do so. They have a lot of moisture. Notice all that southerly flow. It's pumping up moisture to the south, and further south also we have some thunderstorm activity, just not as robust yet. I want to show you now the 6 to 10 day outlook. So this is August 8th through 12th. Again, this is now where we start talking about this concerning pattern. Notice they are very confident in it being above average. And again, this is August 8th through 12th, so pretty far out. Notice only really state that is cooler, or several states, areas, is where the monsoons are going to be occurring across the Southwest and Alaska. Alaska is actually going to be cold, downright cold. Maybe some even early frosts. I would not be surprised there. It is already August. Do note that obviously right there, that's good news. It's going to be wetter there. Also some bad news though. There could be some flash flooding, mudslides. And do note that it's going to be drier, especially where it's the hottest. So that's again kind of why this makes the pattern a bit worse. And notice 8 to 14 days out, the colors are a bit less because the confidence is lower, but still it looks very, very warm for a good portion of the same part of the United States, and drier. Do note the Northeast potentially in this forecast could be a bit cooler, as there could be some pretty big systems swinging by at this time frame, mid-August, and they could be bringing in some chillier air. Again, you can see the confidence is low in that. Notice that above average is trended towards the southwest here. The monsoon's continuing to be very active, and that's good. These areas really need that rain. Hopefully, it's just not like 7 inches in 1 hour, right? It would be nice if it was just a nice pitter patter rain, but that's usually not how it works, especially with monsoons. So I want to show you the GFS. Again, notice that right now today was a very, very hot day. That's why there's excessive heat warnings for a good portion of the Minnesota, and a good portion of the United States have just heat advisories. But notice that it kind of calms down, right? So tomorrow, again, the pattern kind of subsides. We get a brief burst of cooler air, but look, right there into Thursday and Friday, it starts heating up again. We see this extreme anomaly. It's pretty brief for the areas that do experience it, so at least that's that, but it is very extreme. You know, these areas will be dealing with widespread hundreds for at least a few days there. But notice that after we go back, we do see some cooler air try to move in. Notice the northeast also very, very warm here. And that's the thing with this pattern, that there's not a lot of in between. You're either just, chilling in areas that are about average, or quickly gets, and then it just quickly gets either very cold. I mean, those are some pretty cold anomalies as well, or it just gets very warm. And look at that right there, Oregon, right? That's extreme heat compared to average. It's not really like an in between, which is kind of odd, but that's the trend that we've been seeing. Notice this cooler kind of sticks around for a little bit. That's what that potential 8 to 14 outlook was hinting at, a little bit across the northeast, but notice, especially out west, this heat becomes more and more prevalent once we get towards the end of the medium range and into more of the long range. This would be a worst case scenario, but those are some very strong anomalies, widespread hundreds. Nighttime temperatures in southern Canada, nearing 100, which is, just sounds off as it should. And do note that does kind of stay there. GFS being really aggressive with this. And notice Iowa, we're chilling in those very, very strong anomalies right there. Whether or not this will actually come true, hopefully not. That would be a very bad pattern if that were to occur. But notice again, right? You go a bit further north of that, and it's warm, but it's not incredibly warm. But then just a few hundred miles, even 10 to you almost say 10, 20 miles, and it becomes hot again. It's been it's been weird. It's been odd, but that's kind of what the models are doing. And I mean, some of these anomalies are just literally off the charts. Do know where it is cold though, it's also pretty darn chilly. 2-meter temperature shaded, we could see some early frost there, but look at that, 113 there, Grand Fargo, Grand Forks, sorry, that would be definitely not good. And notice this spreads into Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, hundreds, which, is a bit more tame, if you will. But notice this kind of spreads through the north and stays stubborn for a while. Do note we do have very nice cool air out west finally, so that's something to, I guess, look forward to if this pattern were to come through. But again, the damage from this would be extensive. And I want to also point out why I look at the anomaly, because this, I think at this point people know what this is, but it basically shows you how above or below average the temperature is at any given point, at any given time. And, if you take a look at this, you could see that there's clearly some sort of almost record-breaking potentially pattern going on here if this were to come true. But if you were to take a look just at the 2-meter temperature shaded Fahrenheit, you may look at these areas and be like, okay, the northeast is obviously 105 in New York, 104 Boston, that's very hot. But you look up here and you're like 90s, well, yeah, it's just a little bit north of this area, so they deal with 90s probably all the time. And you can see that on anomaly, it's a lot more jarring. Just for reference, right here, there's a polar bear national park here that's in Canada. So polar bears, this may not seem like a long distance on the map, but polar bears start their range right here across James Bay. So 90s there is very, very hot. That's like saying probably the same equivalent of like 115 or 20 across the southern United States. It's I guess not unheard of. They've seen those anomalies in the past years, but unfortunately increasingly often. And I want to show you the European model. This one does a similar thing as the GFS with these extreme anomalies in these kind of almost random-like areas. Notice that as we go out, again, that was the area today. It was very, very warm, and that's why we do have those excessive heat warnings. That will move into the northeast. Again, notice a pretty small area, but it's very vicious. We do see a little bit of cool air behind that. We see another system coming up, so out ahead of it, more warm air, behind it, more cool air. And do note that the anomalies out ahead of this one aren't too ridiculous. Still, though, it will lead to some very warm temperatures. Probably some heat heat advisories will be issued. And then this is when the European, if you recall, the GFS started showing the heat building here again. This is where the European does that as well. Notice a mixture of cool and warm, more warmer during the night, cooler during the day in terms of compared to average. Yeah, that's the thing also. Lately, the last few years at least, I've been kind of weather watching. It seems that the anomalies of warmer temperatures, it always seems the nights have been a bit not as cold compared to average. Obviously colder than the days, but if the day is supposed to be 60 and the night's supposed to be 40, it seems like the days are, within that 60 range, but the nights tend to be like 45, 46. Not as chilly. And it's definitely interesting, but it's definitely been a pattern that's been going on. And notice that the European also develops. I mean, that's a very, very extreme anomaly across Montana. Some of those are definitely probably going to be record-breaking potential. And notice that it kind of moves it into the United States. Only goes out to 240, so we'll have to see what it does with this. But a hot pattern remains. In terms of precip, not the worst case scenario. There will be decent rain potential right across the United States. Not everyone. So again, the implications of 100 degrees for even several days will be still very hard hitting on even areas that do end up seeing quite a bit of rain. But also notice that the monsoons, I guess that's a good thing in terms of the long term. They will be popping off, if you will, and some areas like the just north or just west of or just east of just northeast of Lake Mead could be seeing several inches of rain. So maybe it won't change your water levels too much, but it'll probably prevent them from dropping too much further. And yeah, I mean, a lot of these areas do need rain, so that's really good news. Again, it's just that it may be a bit too aggressive in some areas, and that will cause some flooding. Today, I always look at this map for the past several weeks, and it's always just been full of flash flood warnings and whatnot. Today, it's rather tame. It's probably a calmer day. Still, some flash flood warnings. You can see that any storm that does develop is a very heavy producing rain and a slow mover. Notice that there's one right there across a portion of Death Valley National Park. So I guess that's interesting. Probably seeing it in the desert. I know it does happen occasionally, but when it does happen, there's usually I've seen like documentaries of like how life springs out from the desert when it does rain. So that'd be kind of interesting to see that, in like the course of like a week or whatnot. But let's get back on track. So notice these flash flood warnings across Colorado. Right there, lightning data indicated thunderstorm producing heavy rain. Highway 139, and it's ongoing or will begin shortly. And the main reason they issued this was obviously the heavy rain, but it's near these scarred areas from previous fires, so that will cause debris flows and whatnot. And do note what's interesting: Doppler radar, satellite, and lightning data indicated thunderstorms. The thing is that a lot of times these radars, they in the mountains they struggle. So the meteorologists use different things like lightning strikes and satellite data. That's a bit more conclusive, because you have a storm out here in the plains, the radar will pick up on it easy. It's flat, but in the west they need to use a bit more tools, which makes it challenging, but definitely a lot more interesting, if you will. So that's that. I showed you the GFS. Let me just run you through the MSLP and precip. So this is kind of what the radar could look like. That's this option what the radar could look like. And I guess just focus maybe on the monsoons. I think that's very interesting how every day it just pops up. That's usually when it does rain the heaviest, during the late afternoon, but it continues for a while. Day after day, you can see it affects many areas. A lot of the west, you're dealing with good amounts of rain. Again, long-term wise, that's definitely good. Short-term wise, flash flooding, burn scars, it definitely will be quite a bit of a struggle. And do note that there could be some enhanced tropical activity towards the end, right there, as you saw into Texas. Another reason why this whole heat pattern is able to, I guess, be kept afloat for so long. Notice these lines right here. I meant to stop that at around right there into Kansas, Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma. These lines are blowing winds from the southwest to the north. And when they're in that orientation, they're pretty much directly pumping warm air up. Obviously, notice we do have an area of circulation here, right? If you see that, and that is spinning winds from the north. So whenever a system passes through, it brings in a wave of cool weather. But because this is constantly pumping, these lines don't change. They just change, I guess, intensity. Right there, there's a little bit of a break, and they're not necessarily blowing from the southwest. But as long as these things are blowing, no matter how many cold fronts pass through, it's just going to reheat up again. And as I push this forward, you'll see that again, it's there. It's constantly there. A reason for that is also because because of the monsoons are constantly going on here. The southwest flow here is kind of in a stagnant pattern, so it's able to keep flowing. You can see there's periods where it's a lot less apparent here. You can see it's not too strong. Definitely still a slight southwest, pumping of warm air. But as I get towards the long range, look what we start seeing, even more intensifying of these isobars. They get closer, meaning a tighter winds, stronger winds, sorry. And that is actually something you'd see maybe outside of like a winter storm, a big one. And that is when you see those extreme anomalies, because well, when you have such strong winds, you're going to see such anomalies, and that makes sense. Again, that might not necessarily come true, but we'll have to wait and see. As long as there's a high pressure kind of sitting there, monsoon's going on here, that pattern's going to be with us for a while. And let me just run through this precipitation map one more time. Again, notice there's decent activity across the areas that could be dealing with the heat, so I guess that's preventing this pattern from being completely nightmarish. But do note that a lot of the northern United States could go on for days without water, which, for the western folks, that may seem like a joke, but they have reservoirs, irrigation. That's how the farming works there. Here it's just basically up to Mother Nature 100% in terms of the rainfall, so they need consistent watering there from the rain. And if you have 110 degrees, a lot of plants are going to be needing watering. And yeah, do note that we do have this extreme, pumping of southwest moisture, or sorry, heat and moisture at this time, which gives rise to those extreme anomalies later on. Whether or not that happens, we'll see. But also do note a little bit of snow potentially in the high mountains of Alberta and British Columbia, so we'll have to see about that. But yeah, definitely a rather incredible pattern. And do note that for now, there's these systems, right, bringing this decent amount of cooler air behind them, right? There's another one here on Saturday, this upcoming weekend. But after that one, it pretty much stops, and that's when the heat kind of gets its permission, if you will, to thrive. And that's why both the GFS and the European around that 200-hour timeline start really pumping out that heat. It's not interrupted by the cold fronts. Otherwise, it's been a bit more of a flip-flop pattern between flare-ups like this, today, tomorrow, and then it's gone. Their cold front passes through, but there could be longer periods in the future where it's not like that. Let me show you quickly what the models are showing in terms of the rainfall chances for tonight because of that cold front. Notice again, that's where the severe storms are occurring right now. They could definitely be some nasty ones. Notice just north of Minneapolis, according to this model. Again, this is not 100% accurate. Notice it does produce some storms late night. So if you wake up in Wisconsin, Michigan, southern Canada, Iowa, Minnesota, with some nasty storms, that's this system right here, that cold front. It will be a bit cooler behind it, so that's good. And notice that by 10 a.m., 11 a.m., this is how it looks like. Again, probably some more storms flaring up at around this time frame, and you'll see this only goes out to 12 p.m., but in the afternoon hours, this thing really starts kicking up even more storms. You can see the NAM 3KM even more calm with this thing at 1 p.m. And only starts reinvigorating the storms towards the later afternoon hours, especially toward the south, according to this one. FV3 high res, this one often kind of overhypes a lot of thunderstorms and makes them look a lot more nasty than they actually are. You can see it does show a reforming of that cold front, though it's a bit weaker, so I don't really like that model regardless. Let's take a look at the RGEM. This is a high-res Canadian model. Again, there's that system. There's going to be some severe weather around it across Canada, but they'll definitely will stretch into the United States. And notice there's that cold front tomorrow where it starts producing some of those nasty storms across Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and again into southern Canada, big cities, Toronto, potentially seeing some nasty rain, severe weather, and whatnot. And this could train across similar areas for a while. Look at Indiana. Starts tomorrow 4 or 5 p.m., right? And that continues well into the overnight hours and only finishes really by the morning. And even then, there could be some spotty areas of showers, and that could definitely, if you have one after another, lead to some flash flooding and some concerns with that regard. I could show you the NAM 12KM. This is a decent model. I like it quite a bit. It's gotten better in the past years with various aspects. Do note that that's today, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. It doesn't completely die down during the night. And notice that similar to what the HER model was doing, it shows a lot of activity seemingly earlier on in the day, but that only really increases and potentially gets more intense by 4, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Notice a really impressive cold front starts developing right there, and that could be leading to some nasty storms. But at least after that, there will be some cooler weather that moves in for those areas that are under excessive heat watches right now, or advisories and warnings. Do note that the Northeast will be hot though out ahead of that cold front on Friday and Thursday. There's another system that starts getting through, but out ahead of it, more hot air and then a bit of cooler air, but that's more short term. So yeah, in other words, the alarming pattern, it's going to be hot, not that much rain. We'll have to see how this unfolds. We've already seen a lot of heat waves this year. Earlier, the one in India, now, the one in Europe. We've seen decent heat across the U.S., and I think it'll only start to kind of get worse there. But, it's not all doom and gloom. The southwestern United States will be dealing with quite a bit of rain, and that's really what they need, and a lot of cooler weather, so it could be worse. But for now, that's basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.